WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. My name is J.W. Simmons. I'm your host. I look forward to having a conversation today on a subject that probably you folks have heard a lot about. Maybe you've read things about it in the paper, but we have a very aggressive team in economic development right here in Sampson County. And I want to introduce them to you this morning. We have three folks with us. Stephen Barrington, who is the Director of Economic Development. Stephen, thank you for coming back and being with us today.
Most welcome.
I also want to thank Ali Breedlove, who's Communications Research Person with Economic Development Commission here. Ali, thank you. This is your first time on the show. I hope you'll find it as enjoyable as I do, and also with the additional guests we got.
Well, thank you for having me.
And Ray Jordan, I don't know, your name has probably been out. I know you've been on this show. I can't even count the times, but people know you from the Exposition Center. You're the executive director there at the Exposition Center, but I noticed you got another title now, and it's like all these titles, I'm assuming the county's paying you, but you're the assistant director, Sampson County Economic Development Commission. With these titles comes more money. Is that right, Stephen?
You would hope so.
You would hope. Yeah. We'll kind of leave that there. I want to start today with economic development. It is a big issue. It has huge expectations. And Stephen, I'll start with you. Those expectations comes with a plan. It comes with strategy. Given what we're just now coming out of, which is a global pandemic, where are we with economic development in Sampson County?
JW, that's actually a really great question, and this will probably be a joint answer as we go through this. One of the things that the Economic Development Advisory Board, they did last year, for at least as we got started in the year, they created a 5-year strategic plan. But there was only one goal on that strategic plan, which was to grow our tax base by $150 million over the next 5 years, 2020 to 2025, but even more importantly, to add good quality jobs. And so that's extremely important. So everything we do is kind of around that strategic goal itself, but thus also the reason why, as part of our plan, we have Ali here as well as our administrative assistant retired more recently. What we had done is kind of reframed the role and kind of readjusted the role to really make it a little bit more in tune with our needs today. And we're going over the next 5 years. Communications is going to be a big area, telling our story. And as part of doing that, that's why Ali's here to help us lead that effort of telling our story. But there are a few other areas. One is really growing the product that we have. And when we refer to product, we're talking about the availability of land and buildings that are of good quality for companies who are looking at the region so that we can be more competitive. And Ray leads that team. So our product development team, Ray is masterful, and he leads that effort that we have within our team itself. And really the third part is as important as anything else, and that is really how do we help maintain the existing industries that are here? How do we have conversations with them, and it really kind of connect and convene resources that may be amenable to those companies?
So Ali, the word came up there in the conversation, communications, with what Stephen just kind of laid out, and you look at your role with research and communications, kind of particularly. What do you see happening in that? What is the vision you've got, the way this whole agenda is communicated? We're talking $150,000. We're talking money's got to come from somewhere. Yeah. And knowing the commissioners now, Ali, I don't think you're going to see a tax increase. I don't think that's in the agenda. So how do you look at communicating that?
So we want to make it make sense to the audience and tell that story. Stephen is big on this, and I really appreciate that, making it make sense for the viewer, for the audience. And one way we're doing that right now, we're starting an e-newsletter. And if anyone wants to sign up, you can go to our website. And part of that is going to be bringing in our resource partners, what services they offer, because we can provide services, but we also know people who can provide and meet that end. And when someone comes to us, we don't ever want to shut the door. We want to provide excellent customer service. And if we can't meet that need, we likely know someone who can. So we want to connect them with the business resource partner. In our e-newsletter, we're going to be promoting our business resource partners, telling the community what they offer. And then there's going to be some livability in it. We want to let the community and Sampson County know what industries are here, who they are, what they do, the story behind those industries, and really looking at things also from a regional approach.
Ray, I'm going to segue to you. I know you've been doing this a long time with the Exposition Center, and I guess at least you've entertained about everybody in the county and the area. You've been connected through people that are looking for a venue to express what their concerns are. Not only have you been part of making that happen, but you've talked to a lot of people. Give us your idea, based on this first opening commentary here, where you see us going, and is there some piece of that maybe Ali just mentioned, that as far as communicating with the general population, that they can help do?
Well, JW, I think the one thing to consider is that economic development, it will start out by saying and making it clear that it's a process. It's not an event. And what I mean is that we will be disc in the field, plowing the ground, getting ready to plant the seeds for the future. So a lot of what we will do in our roles will be payoff down the road. It's often not immediate. So it's very important that takes us back to 2.5 years ago when Chairman Wooten was going all over Sampson County, visiting with every civic group that would meet with him, and every church group, anyone that would meet with him, to let them understand economic development, the process of it, and the need for it. We would never underestimate or undervalue the existing industry and the importance agriculture is in our community. But what we do have to do is to be mindful as to how we grow the tax base, and primarily what we focus on is a non-residential tax base, which is your industry and not houses and things like that. Now, the flip side of that is the housing side of it is equally important, because if you don't have somewhere for people to live, if you create 200 new jobs, where are they going to stay? So it touches every spot of every aspect of it. But that's kind of where the framework has been laid. And as Stephen said, our goal was to increase that non-residential tax base. Well, everybody says, what are you trying to do? Well, we're trying to create jobs. We're trying to create the tax base. And we're trying to increase livability. And when we talk about livability, as Ali mentioned, what we're talking about there is the quality of life for the folks within the community. So every time you can raise any of those bars, hopefully with that, the standard of living is raised. And you have more amenities and more things for people to do, more opportunity.
One of the things that just kind of came out just as you guys were talking, and I'm processing this, and I think it's a question that must be asked, and that is, what do you, just us sitting here talking today, from your perspective, what do you feel is the expectation of the citizens of Sampson County? Ray, you mentioned that the chairman had gone out, and yes, I was part of one of those civic clubs when he came out to speak, and he did a good job in messaging that. But my question is there any research, is there anything that tells you that this is what the citizens are anticipating, expecting, or is there somewhat of kind of lackadaisical feeling. I think that seems to me an important piece, because if the general population wants something to happen, if they understand it, they're going to be very aggressive in helping make that happen. Either one of you or all of us.
So that's a very interesting question, and I want to speak to it on a couple of different fronts, if
Sure.
possible. One being the whole urban versus rural, and what we have to do within our community versus what they're doing in the Triangle area. One of the things we're trying to do is set the table, is kind of to create the environment for companies to come. And that includes the livability, that includes having the availability of buildings and land, things like that. So what we're doing right now is setting the table. One of the things we have to deal with that, frankly, our counterparts in the Raleigh-Durham area are not, is they're not really having to worry about product development. They don't have to create new parks. The market's taking care of itself. So one of our roles is to really help spur the market. Now, to answer your question, I think really from a residential community standpoint, what I've heard is folks will love to see a bowling alley here. Folks will love to see the Chick-fil-A. They would like to see all these other types of businesses that come here. Where we're spending a little bit more of our time is really less on those areas as much as the industrial. And what we know is the rooftops will help dictate some of these other movements with some of these other retail restaurant types of companies.
And to add to Stephen, one thing is economic development, JW, means something different to everybody. And as Stephen's alluded, you may talk to a citizen and all of a sudden the economic development for them is that Chick-fil-A or that new restaurant or whatever. That's what they see as economic, and that is economic development. And it's very important, as Stephen was saying, about how we can build and set the stage for new things to come to the community. But again, our primary focus is on non-residential tax base and with job creation, those kind of things.
And here's one of the reasons why we do that. One of the biggest reasons why we do that is because we know that the impact scenario of gaining these industries yields more restaurants, retail, convenience store workers, etc.
We're going to take a break and we'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Take a quick break. Call a friend. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of show left. We've got a lot of people, a lot of questions to talk to. But this is about your financial base, your tax base, your future base, your children's. We'll be back in a moment.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. We Should Know It's on there. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. Glad to be with you today and just excited to talk about possibilities and potentials for jobs, new industry, new businesses, and we're talking with folks that know something about that. We're talking to Stephen Barrington, who is the Director of Economic Development here. We're talking with Ali Breedlove, Communications and Research for the Economic Development sector here, and Ray Jordan. Ray, I'm going to give him your Economic Development title, the Assistant Director for the Sampson County Economic Development Commission. I'm not going to talk about your other title. We'll talk about that later as soon as COVID is gone. So when we went off air and on break, we talked about a subject I think segues us back in, and that's public expectation. What does the folks listening to this show, wherever they may be, and hey, they could be in another county, but what should they expect from this county? What should they expect from our economic development side? What should they expect when they look at their children or grandchildren and go, I want to tell you, you really you need to go to college. I'm a big college person, so I try to encourage people to go to college. But Stephen, when I do that, I'm also thinking, well, now, does that really mean if they get a 4-year degree or a master's degree or whatever, or a doctorate? It doesn't guarantee them anything. So I think back, Ray, at the community college where a lot of my experiential base is, and there's where a lot of the trades and skills are that are in high demand now. So what do we communicate? How do we know what, or how does the public know what to expect?
Well, JD, probably one thing is that we all as a community probably need to do a better job of understanding, to your point, what jobs are available, and that, for example, electricians, plumbers, HVAC, they're in high demand as you can get. Mm-hmm. But where is those skills being taught? Now there's trade schools and educational opportunities for that, but unless somebody really is born into it, or that someone is just takes an aggressive path toward that, they're not just, it's not a natural progress to that. So I think one of the things is that how do we, and this is a much bigger conversation than economic development. This would be a conversation to include educators on with the local schools, with the community college, all through the ranks of education, and then a broader conversation with parents and how we and counselors and as they're coaching kids through. So that's a big conversation. Mm-hmm. Stephen, where would you add to that?
Yes, so I do think to Ray's point, an awareness and kind of an awareness campaign would be very, very helpful in terms of just letting younger folks know what is available, what exists out there. I think oftentimes even those who go off to four-year college, unless they're especially set on a certain dynamic, they're going to probably become a little bit more aware of, oh, I did not realize that this existed or that this was possible to do, etc. As bringing it back to Sampson County itself, Sampson County, our location quotient. Now, when I refer to the location quotient, I'm referring to our competitiveness. How much of the specific industries do we have compared to what the nation has and the region has, et cetera? Well, we are, no doubt about it, Sampson County is very strong in manufacturing and ag. Those are the two strongest from a location quotient standpoint. There are some other areas from professional services that frankly, we're not as competitive within this marketplace, the Sampson County marketplace, as many other locations. In fact, we're about half as competitive as many others. So there are some industries on a high level scale that we may want to, if this is an area that we want to begin attracting and bring into the area, oftentimes that will come as a result of new business and industry coming to the area and more folks wanting to come, and the livability is here, as we spoke to earlier, and the quality of life components are enhanced or communicated or known, etc. But I do agree with Ray in terms of the communication itself, but I would also say in Sampson County, we cannot grow trades folks fast enough to keep up with the existing industry that's here. Companies are as their retirees are moving on, they're looking for younger folks to step into those positions. And right now, what we're hearing through our existing business and industry visits with companies, that's a challenge at this point.
Ali, I think about hands-on kind of jobs is what we're talking about.
That's correct.
You put your hands on something, you make it work, or you fix something, or whatever. When you're looking at communication, is this the position you're in now? Is this something that, as we're talking to folks today, that it would be logical to say, if you have a commentary or an idea, should they reach out to you and say, Ali, here's what I think about so and so and so, or I'm thinking about expanding something, and I'm going to need X number of people. How do they make that happen, and kind of give us an idea of what you want to hear from the public, from the general population?
Yeah, so one of our main roles in communications, we want people to know that Sampson County is hiring. We hear our industry leaders in our EDC advisory board meetings, they're hiring, and I want to communicate that to the public. And as far as the specific question you asked, I think Stephen can help me out there, but we really want to communicate that Sampson County is hiring. I just went through the job hiring process myself, and it was there's just kind of a thing with COVID. I feel like a lot of people believe no one's hiring, and that's simply not true. People are hiring, especially in Sampson County, and we want to make sure the community is well informed of that. And we want to start working together. Stephen and Ray, they're wonderful about if they see an issue, what can we do to get to a solution? And they're working on creating an ad hoc team right now to address this and to work with the existing industry and potentially to start in middle school and start in high school and start informing these students of where the potential is in Sampson County and where they can go here.
And Stevie, you just segueing that back to you, and I'll take it from Ali and move it over to you. I think that's a good question, and plus, I think the other thing is important for folks to understand that, I've referred to a couple of times in introduction here, the commission. There is a number of folks that sit on an economic development commission that are people from this community. Kind of give us an idea, because it's not just focusing everything and saying everybody just, hit Ali with all these questions. I didn't mean to do that, but you got a commission of people out there that represent various segments of the community. Tell us about how that organization looks and how it's supposed to flow.
Yeah, so good question. Ray may want to speak to this as well, but essentially the advisory board, and when we refer to the advisory board, we're talking about exactly the group that you're referring to, the group that make up the EDC commission, and these are folks, so you have two segments. You have segments that is 9 folks that are voted on or have voting rights within our board, and then you have another 11 folks who we need to have at the table. Overall, what you'll see on our board, you'll see education, business, and government working together, and you'll see folks from each of those areas that are working together that creates the real wins for what we're doing and help us from an advisement standpoint. We'll bring a lot of different opportunities and issues for the group to actually work on, but also we want their advice in terms of and their advisement in terms of direction at different times, and that will go from our existing industry focus to our business recruitment efforts and product development, et cetera. To Ali's point, one of the things they recently did at this past meeting, they know that there's an area in which we could grow, and they know that there may be a role for economic development between the middle school, high schoolers, and industry, and helping to make those connections. We know that there's CTE groups at the high school, but even what is our role within that itself? And so, to Ali's point, they are developing an ad hoc team to really kind of vet what is our role, and they'll be bringing in and working on this for several months before they kind of identify, yes, let's spend our time and our efforts and our resources in this capacity as it relates to between that talent, future talent, and the industry itself. But overall, the advisory board, the commission, they're a group of business leaders within the community, business, government, education leaders that really help support our efforts, because we know that it's a 3-legged stool, and if you don't have one of those legs, you're going to fall down.
Ray, is that model working?
JW, let me answer your question by starting with this.
Yeah.
One of the things that I heard years ago, and I think is very true and holds true and will continue, is that economic development only can happen where the public and private sector intersect. But to that point is, if we step back in time 2 years, the amount of effort that the county board of commissioners, the county administration or county manager has put forth into creating an economic development team, I cannot underscore enough the value that they have seen and placed in trying to create a team that will lead us down the road. And to Stephen's point, those folks that are appointed to the board, those ad hoc committees that are participating, it will not happen without that teamwork. It's just impossible. Those members of the community that are business leaders and leaders and within the community are the ones that will help us get this thing down the road.
I think one of the things too, as part of this conversation, is kind of where I'm looking at getting to is that process working effectively to engage and connect with the larger population? Is that the best mechanism, Ali? I guess when I look at it from from that perspective. And maybe when we come back from break, we can kind of address some of those issues. Big thing today, and I guess it's part because we've just been through a pandemic, communication is a huge issue. And folks are learning all of these unbelievable ways to communicate. And some of it's pushed us forward drastically. So when we come back, let's talk about a bit of that and make sure we're reaching those people. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment.
At home or away, knowing who is at your door is priceless. Star Communications is here to help with its doorbell security camera by Skybell. Live viewing and two-way audio equips you with the ability to always see and greet anyone that shows up at your door. If this is the kind of confidence you are looking for, call Star Communications today at 1-800-706-6538 to learn more about this intelligent security that you can always depend on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. We're talking with a group of folks today. We're talking about economic development, and I want to thank everybody here, particularly Stephen Barrington. Stephen, you're somewhat still new to the area, but you've had time to, as the old saying goes around here, get your feet wet. We've got a very new person. Ali Breedlove is on, and Ali is part of the team here today, and Ali is kind of responsible for communications and research. Those are such big words, Ali. I'm wishing you great luck and success with that. And Jordan, you're kind of like me. People know your name, know your face. You've been around. You've done a lot of stuff here in the county. And one of your job descriptions now, added to what people know you for with the Exhibition Center, is Assistant Director of Sampson County Economic Development. As we went to break, and when we come back, I want to follow that train of thought on this whole idea of generating that communication and networking with the public. We were talking about the commission. We were talking about the advisory boards. And I think I posed that question, Ray, as we went to break. Is that model working? And trying to understand, if it is, how do we accentuate that model, maybe, Stephen? How does Ali push that model forward to make it work better? If it's not, how do we add to that? And that's kind of where the discussion was. I'm going to toss that back on the table.
Well, JW, just taking a little step, just think about this. Most people don't really think about economic development on a daily basis. And as we said earlier, if you ask probably 10 people on the street, 9 of them are going to say it's dealing with some type of retail business, and we're not undervaluing that because that's truly needed. But to your point, whenever you talk about economic development in the sense of what the Economic Commission's mission is, which is to increase the non-residential tax base, sure, we've got to do a better job at telling our story. Well, it's not just telling the story about, we got to let folks understand why it's needed. To your point, people, if they're not buying into it, they're not going to be engaged and not going to help you get there. So we got to continue to move that needle forward and letting folks understand what it is, the process, and then the other thing is how we can let them become engaged or involved. And part of what Ali will be working on, and Stephen and I as we go on, is to and it's going to be a slow process, is of letting folks understand what it is we do. Because the conception is, when you say economic development, for the average person on the street, it encompasses anything economic development, whether it be recruiting a doctor or recruiting a new storefront or a restaurant. They probably the last thing they think about is a new industry. The average person on the street, and it's not working in the field. So, and this is what we'll continue to do as we move forward, is to how do we engage and bring those folks that want to be engaged, that will help you move the needle forward, and then there will be some generic information that will need to be shared with the general public. As far as what I mean is that folks that just want the high level view. Then you're going to have folks that want to be in the weeds with us. So it's going to be some of both of that.
And to be honest with you, we have not outwardly, for the external public, we have not done significant work in this space before. But part of our effort is building to this. This past year, in terms of with that strategic plan, the number one objective of our strategic plan is to tell our story, and it's to tell our story to two different audiences. One is the stakeholders right here, the community, the elected officials, regional partners, state partners, telling our story to stakeholders, incredibly important. The second part would be specific to a different audience, and this would be to site selection consultants. It would be directly to companies, leads, for them to become a little bit more aware of Sampson County, who we are, what we do, and what we have to offer, the availability of properties, things like that, the commercial real estate, industrial brokers, and groups like that. So really two different distinct audiences. So that was creating the plan. That came up as the first objective. The second part of us moving closer to starting this communication was hiring Ali. And Ali was, that was a very big piece. To be able to make this happen in the first place. Our next step, and Ali is 3 months in, but our next step, and we hope to kick it off in April. In fact, we expect to kick it off in April, is an e-newsletter that we'll be putting out on a monthly basis, specifically towards stakeholders, and to let folks know this is why we do what we do, who we are. Here's some of the little things that's going on today, and little by little, month after month, folks will get to know a little bit more about us, our organization, our department, what our focus is, et cetera. And so that's going to be very important. But this started actually before I came on board. Within a year before I came on board, the county went through had a customer service study. And overall, they said economic development was fine, but they said an area that we could actually do to improve ourselves was communication. Communication was number one on the list, to your point. And so we're making strides, and to Ray's point, it is a process. And even the communication on a monthly basis and gathering content and different things, it's a process. But we hope that beginning in April and ongoing, that more folks in the community will get to know who we are and what we do.
Stephen, I hear what I'm hearing come through is that you're developing an environment where ease of access is critically important, that folks can access you. So I'll follow it with this question. What would that conversation sound like and look like between you and Ali and Ray as you talk about improving that ease of access?
Well, JW, let's back up, and I'll add something we've not talked about. A lot of what we do is very secretive and very private, just because of the nature of working with the industries that are looking at the community. So while there's a huge part of information we need to share, there's also, on the other hand, there's information that we can't share as we're working to recruit industry into this community. So we need to make sure that's laid out there to start with. But to back up and trying to look at how we began, and to Stephen's point, over the past 2 years, I can't tell you the number of conversations that have been had with local leaders. And here's one thing that's very important. We serve Sampson County. We don't serve Clinton. We don't serve just Newton Grove, just any community. We're here to serve every inch of Sampson County. So our initial stages, which we've overlooked talking about this morning, is what we've been doing, in these meetings with the mayor of Newton Grove or with the mayor of Roseboro. Those type of things there that where they're understanding and now they've seen to use Chairman Wooten's, they drink the Kool-Aid. They're seeing that they need tax base. So they're seeing that we're trying to work with them as we're not trying to work in a silo anymore. So I think that's worth mentioning, is that we're working down that path to educate people, and it's going to be a slow process. And as Ali starts working on communication, there's two areas, as Stephen said. One is to try to tell our story locally, to have the community to embrace and feel good about what we're doing, and that we're going to represent them well. We're not going to bring something here they don't want. So creating that understanding, and then also, equally as important, creating that information for the folks that are looking to come to our community.
Ali, Stephen mentioned you were 3 months in. I'm glad he mentioned that. So folks will know I'm not putting you on the spot or anything. so as you hear what these guys are saying and where we are in this conversation, what's your sense? I mean, what do you feel in your role as it's been referred to as communication and research person? How do you feel about this? You still willing to hang with them for a while?
Oh yeah, so 3 months in, but a lifetime in Sampson County.
There you
now,
go.
I did go away for a little bit for work, and I'm happy to be home. So I was born and raised here.
You got some good roots, is what you're saying.
Yes, right? I love Sampson County, and I think what I hear here and what I hear all the time at our office, I love this about Mr. Causey. He mentions the word synergy a lot, and we can't do what we do without one another. And you know, the scripture, it says two are better than one, and they have a better return for their labor. And I love that. I love the focus within communications. I can't do my job without everybody else. I mean, I love having Stephen's input and Ray's input, Mr. Causey's, the Board of Commissioners, and then bringing in Roseboro, Turkey, the city of Clinton, the county, and working together truly to benefit the economic well-being of the people of Sampson County. I mean, I love Sampson County and I love the people here, and working together for their good and for their economic well-being, that's important to me. And I'm thankful that it's in action. It's not just in words that they support that, it's in action. Like they provided, as soon as I came on board, Stephen let me know we've got a communications work team. It's already in place. And so I have a team that helps me, that brings input to the table. They encourage. If I have a question, I can go to them for help. And I just so appreciate that about our county, that we want to work together, and I'm ready to bring, the community on board to help them to understand who we are and what we do, and to tell that story to them and to see how we serve them.
Ray mentioned something, Stephen, that I thought was very important, is that oftentimes folks might look at economic development and not see it as something that they are or should be more familiar with and understand better. Is that part of what you see Ali doing, is making sure that the public understands it better?
That's exactly the point. And to our conversation during the break, that frankly we all have a place at the table. Everyone in the community has a place at the table, from those who are serving and waiting on folks at restaurants to the general mom and pop store down the road or whatever.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about over $1 million grant the county has received. What are they going to do with all this money? Stay tuned, call a friend. We're talking $1 million.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. I want to thank you for being with us. We're coming up on the last segment of the show. I want to remind you, if you want to reach us, you can email us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. If you wish to drop us a card or a suggestion or a note or what have you, you can tell us on email, or you can send it to Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. That's Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina, and we'll be glad to take a response to that if it's something we need to respond to, or many times we'll take your suggestion and get that particular person or persons on and have a conversation about the subject you're interested in. And again, please stay in touch and keep us focused on what you need to hear more about in this county. This is an education and information show, and today we're talking about the whole issue of economic development, and we're talking with the director of economic development, a fellow that's been on before and we've been very kind to us and coming on again, Stephen Barrington. And of course, we got a new person on that's not been a face on the show. Hopefully we'll have her back soon. That's Ali Breedlove, communications person and research person. Ray Jordan. Been on for some time, and we've talked about a lot of things. Can't wait till we come back and we talk about Live After 5 again. That's a big program that brings a lot of people into the county. But your new title, along with your other title, which still exists, is Assistant Director of the Sampson County Economic Development Commission. $1 million plus. We've got over $1 million in grant money. And the word grant means a lot, because that means you can take that money and use it for economic development issues. And if I'm not badly mistaken, when I looked at that, did I understand, Stephen, that this is the first time with this amount of money that the county's received that much money?
This is the first, actually, JW, this is the first time, period, that Sampson County has received a grant from NC Commerce's Industrial Development Fund.
This is a big deal.
It is a big deal, and it really helps complement and allows us to be able to further develop the investment that the County Board of Commissioners have really spent and invested money in terms of expanding the availability of land for us to market, which is in the Sampson Southeast Business Center.
When I say, is this business center, this land already there, so do you have to purchase land with this money, or is this for infrastructure?
Great question. So the grant itself is for a new road within the existing park, as well as water and sewer extension. The county, actually, with our reserve funds that the county has been investing for years at this point, they invested in nearly 120 acres just this past fall, over $2.1 million of investment towards additional land that we can market for companies to come in the area. This 1.28 is on top of that.
Yeah, so JW, just to recap, Stephen, the primary focus of what we've been spending a great deal amount on as a team is trying to create product to sell, whether it be buildings or buildings or property. Going into 2 years ago, we owned the county owned one piece of parcel of land that we actually could market and knew we could sell at a price and move on. We worked with other landowners, but we didn't have very many things under commitment, so to speak. So to Stephen's point, the county purchased in October, early November, 120 acres in the industrial park here in Clinton. Mm-hmm. And this $1.28 million grant is going to allow the extension of a 12-inch sewer line, a 10-inch water line, fire hydrants, and a road of about 1,000 feet long. Recently, the EDC, through Stephen's work, received a grant from the North Carolina Southeast Partnership to put together what's the right word, Stephen? A plan for the existing property within the industrial park. Mm-hmm. That shows how land can be divided, marketing materials, wetland studies, and such as that. So there's been a great deal of amount of work done on this property to make it, quote, shovel ready for a potential industry to move into. So that's been a huge effort on behalf of our team. But more importantly, the commitment that the commissioners as a group have supported. It was a 5-0 vote, and so you can, if anything we can underscore today, it would be that the county commissioners and administration, their commitment toward economic development.
And if I can further speak to that, it's very interesting because, again, this speaks to what I spoke about earlier. In the Triangle area, they're not having to spend their financial resources on product development. The market takes care of it. We have to invest in that. And one of the reasons why is over the last 5 years between the North Carolina Southeast Regional Economic Development and the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, we have received over 550 requests for companies who are looking at this region amongst other areas. To Ray's point, we have not been able to even compete for nearly most of those opportunities. We couldn't even compete or even submit a request. We couldn't even put in requests for information data to even try to compete for those businesses that were looking to come to this area because we did not have available land. And so this further supports that effort to really be able to attract. Now, where Sampson County is That land's going to be light industrial. It's not going to be a heavy industrial. It will not be smokestack based on water capacity, based on the location itself. It is planned industrial. So much like the Schindlers and the DeBose and many of the other companies that are already there, it's going to complement those very well. But it will not be, that land itself is not geared towards heavy manufacturing per se.
But JW, just in talking about the importance of product and having assets to sell, be able to market to our prospective industry, the Enviva project is roughly a $130 million project. That's pretty much what they're paying taxes on. That would not have happened had Sampson County not owned that property.
That's correct.
And was able to be nimble and quick and responsive to that request and work with them. You know, even though it took a year and a half or so to get that project done. But, you know, again, that would not have happened had Sampson County not had the foresight to purchase that property.
So I guess what I'm hearing then is that the idea of this property that Ray just spoke about, this 100 plus acres and this 1.2 plus million dollars, that money will allow that property to be turned into access with roads and with water and sewer and that kind of thing, that folks can go and you can say, here's a piece of property with the land mass that will accommodate your business. Then they come in and put up the structure. So you guys are not talking about putting structures up, you're just talking about developing the infrastructure to reach the property.
That's exactly correct. With
Do
this
we
grant.
have the road accesses to do that? Where this property is located is 421 is access, I think, Ray?
Yeah. The industrial park located within the city of Clinton is called the Sampson Southeastern Business Center. Industrial Drive goes all the way through it, so there's an in and out, one off North Boulevard and one off 421, and Superior Drive is another. So there's 3 access points to it. But what this grant money will allow is us to create another road within the park, so you can further subdivide the property for industrial buildings. You take, for example, the industries within the park. Most of them are resting on somewhere between 15 and 20 acres of land. And the way the parcels can be divided, you know, this road would create access and creating those size lots. But more importantly, it would get the water and the sewer closer and already be there rather than having to build it after you. It's easier when you've got a baited hook, you can catch a fish. If you got no bait on the hook, you're not going to catch a fish. And we're putting the bait on the hook out there.
And we're estimating that this investment of new companies that will locate there, we're estimating that it will yield $35+ million in additional taxable investment income to the county. So adding that to the tax base, it may be more than that, but we feel like on more of a conservative number, $35 million would likely, the county will likely see an increase of $35 million or greater in terms of their taxable income.
Al, you got a lot of stuff to communicate. I can just sense this already. We're coming up very quickly, guys, on the show. It goes fast. We got about 2 minutes left. I know there's a couple other things we were going to mention, and Steve and I will refer to you, Ray, some things you want to make sure we got on the air today. Yeah,
just basically, and I'm going to put it over to Ray in just a quick second.
Sure.
Really want to brag on Ray, Jordan, and on the advisory board specifically in relation to bringing back the revolving loan fund, and I'm going to let Ray speak to the rest.
So JW, several years ago, the county received, Economic Development Commission received a grant, or we participated in a revolving loan program through the EDA. And once that original loan was repaid, the money would stay in our county to be used in a revolving loan pool. So that whole process has been revamped, and the guidelines have been reviewed, applications shortened to make it possible. But basically what we have there is we have a fund that where local business and industry can come to the EDC and apply for loans for projects that will help, projects that either increase jobs, projects that, for example, a company that might need to expand their footprint. There's opportunity there for, and this mainly applies probably more so to small business.
Well, I want to, and can you give us a number in case somebody wants to follow up on that right quick? We got to go to close. So.
Yeah, call our office at 910-592-8921.
And for more information, visit our website.
Absolutely. And we'll do that. And hopefully we'll have you guys back on. I want to thank you, Stephen. Ali, welcome to the show. Ray, good to see you back anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We've gone through a lot of information relatively quick for you. Hopefully we'll get these guys back. I know you have a lot of questions. Give them a call. They'll be glad to talk to you about it further, whether it's the loan program or more information about the park and what's happening there as far as infrastructure. This is crucial and critically important to this county and, to Stephen's point, this entire region. So we look forward to seeing you again next week right here every Tuesday at 2:30. Again, the name of the show is We Should Know, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.